Good morning. This is a public hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on Wednesday, January 27th, 2021, in accordance with the provisions of the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 272. It's being broadcast live on Channel 18 and recorded for the archives. My name's Janet Williams, and as Chair of the Conservation Commission, I'm opening this hearing at 9:01 a.m. Today's hearing is being conducted by remote video conference pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency orders in effect during the COVID emergency. Every effort's been made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. The agenda for today and all copies of documents for review today have been posted on the town website. A couple of quick reminders for people who are watching on Channel 18 and wish to participate and ask a question or make a comment, you may do so by calling the number you see on your screen. Also, asking all participants on the platform today to make sure that you are muted to avoid any kind of background noise or feedback. And if possible, until your turn comes to speak, if you can keep your camera off, except commissioners who are welcome to put theirs on, so I'm not the only one. Keep it on until you speak, and then when you are presenting, you're more than welcome to turn your camera on because it's easier to listen when you can actually see the person. And so, as always throughout this period, commission votes today will be by roll call. And so that we now have a record of a quorum of the commission attending today, I'm going to ask each member to indicate their presence on the call. Commissioner Rawls.
Here.
Commissioner Del Vecchio.
Present.
Commissioner Clark.
Present.
So we do have a quorum here today. Commissioner Joe Kitts is out on a leave of absence. We do not have any continuance requests that I'm aware of for today. Paul, so we should move to the first item on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to you and commissioners, guests. First on the agenda today is an RDA. The following applicants, have filed requests for determination of applicability. 80 Ridgevale Road South, Carolyn and Gary Terry, proposed installation of a pump chamber, D-box, and leaching field at 80 Ridgevale Road, Assessors Map 7B, parcel G63.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Cronin, are you? There you are. Hello.
You can see me and hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Linda Cronin with CSN Engineering, representing the owners of 80 Ridgevale Road South. Basically, it's a repair of a failed septic system.
Mm-hmm.
We're utilizing the existing tank, 1,000-gallon tank. We're installing a 650-gallon pump chamber, a D-box, and 14 ARC 36 leach chambers. Basically, as you can see, due to site constraints and the resource area, and the fact that this road layout is way into their property, we originally went there, I thought, oh great, we can put it right in the driveway, but as you can see, the road layout comes way in. So holding, I'll give you the variances. Basically, we are asking, so the SAS is not 20 feet from a cellar wall. We're holding 12 feet, asking for an 8-foot variance. The septic is not 10 feet from the easterly property line. We're holding 6 feet, and the SAS on that side for that property is way on the other side. So we're well over 10 feet from their septic. It's not 10 feet from the northerly property line. We are holding 1 foot to that line and asking for a 9-foot variance. The pump chamber is not 10 feet from the north property line. We're holding 1 foot and asking for a 9-foot variance. We're also asking for the SAS is not 100 feet from the wetland resource, the top of coastal bank, and we're holding 80 feet and asking for a 20-foot variance. That's basically, it's a repair. It's an existing 2-bedroom, and they're keeping it at 2 bedrooms with a deed restriction. It's gone through the Board of Health and has been approved.
Okay, that was my question. Okay, and yeah, I can see from the site plan that it's an unusual configuration where the road over time the driveway's in the road, I take it then, the edge of the bottom 20 feet or so was actually.
Yeah, almost all of the driveways in the road layout, and the people on the other side, actually, the road is on their property. So it is what it is. You have to work.
Okay.
I've seen crazy things.
The leach field located right up against the line as far as it can go, away from the buffer zone, from the 100 foot to the coastal bank. The entire lot, I take it, is in the floodplain?
No, what was the floodplain?
Coastal storm flowage, is that?
I'm sorry, I just lost my, so the floodplain was,
I thought there was some reference that most of it was in, there's a VE zone, X zone, and I don't see an.
I mean, we're really high up there. It is not in the flood zone. There's a, V zone is way down. We're in the X. There's an AE down there. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's 13, 14. We're up at 18, 19, 20 up here.
Yep, got it. Okay, and so I saw on the, so the disturbed area will be revegetated with native shrubs and native ground cover?
Yeah, whatever we can. Obviously, we can't put anything over the SAS. It's going to be, lawn. They're going to cut their driveway down a bit. We'll put a railroad tie across there to keep people from driving on it.
Yeah.
But yep, anything that's disturbed will revegetate. As not a lot of area that will be disturbed though.
Okay. All right, let me see. Questions from commissioners. Bob, anything?
No, I don't have any questions. It looks like there's really not many options there.
Bob Delvecchio?
No, so I think it's pretty straightforward. I would approve it. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Tom?
Had a couple of questions. Mostly just, I was trying to understand what aspect of the septic system failed, and what has been done in the interim since it failed, in terms of dealing with wastewater and so on.
The leach pit was failed. It was it's been sold and been empty pretty much since they actually lived there for, I don't know, a month after we found the failure. So it's been empty most of the time.
Do you know where liquids, did any liquids spread across the property, either subsurface or surface?
No. So basically in the leach pit, we were about, a half of 6 inches or so from the bottom of the pipe, but could see that had backed up in the past. So that's how it failed. It wasn't overflowing at the time we were there. It probably had in the past, but.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, what's the base flood elevation on this property, if you know?
I do. It's there's a VE that's 14, elevation 14, and an AE that's elevation 13. Where we're putting the system is up at elevation 19. So. Okay.
That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, do we have is there a motion for a negative determination?
Yes, Bob Rawls, I move for a negative determination.
Clark, second.
Okay, roll call vote for a negative determination for 80 Ridgevale. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So that's approved unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Cronin.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, Paul, let's move on to the next one.
Next on the agenda is an RDA. The address is 108 Mill Hill Road, Jonathan Reyes. Proposed construction of a second-story dormer within the 5,100-foot buffer at 108 Mill Hill Road, assesses map 4H, parcel 7.
Okay, is Mr. Reyes on the line today? Okay, that's not expected after his submission. Paul, what do we do? We have no applicant.
Given the nature of this project,
can we go ahead and,
Absolutely, yeah, you don't need to have anybody here. Maybe he's having trouble getting in, but there are
Yeah.
really no issues with this, as you know.
yep.
So you absolutely can go forward.
Okay. Just for the record, this is a proposed construction of an extension and a deck on the second floor of an existing house. It overhangs, the deck will overhang the existing deck on the first floor. There's no connection to the ground. It doesn't touch the ground in any way. There's no alteration of any resource area. It is all construction inside the existing structure. So in my review, after my review, I would conclude that this qualifies for a negative determination because there is no alteration of any resource area associated with this. Would anybody care to speak to that or make a motion?
Bob Rawls, I just continue to recuse myself, being a neighbor.
No, in that case, I'll make the motion
Okay.
for a negative determination.
Yep.
Second,
Okay. Roll call vote for a negative determination for 108 Mill Hill. Commissioner Rawls.
Abstaining. Yep.
Delvecchio.
aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So let the record reflect that we've approved a negative determination for 108 Mill Hill Road.
Did we have an abstention on by one of the commissioners?
Yes, so it's 301 is the vote, Mary.
Okay, thank you. I was just making notes.
Yep. All right, Paul, let's move on.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a request to amend an existing order of conditions. The location is 520 Shore Road. Sandbars LLC is the owner, SE 103083. This is a continuance of a hearing for an amendment to an existing order for the inclusion of new topographical data and changes to the construction protocol at 520 Shore Road, Assessors Map 16G, Parcel T1.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr.
Good
Go
morning,
ahead.
Janet, Mr. Chairman. I was in conference with Paul Whiteman yesterday, or perhaps the day before.
Hold on, just for the record, since we also can't even see you. Can you identify?
Oh,
Yeah.
so sorry. Bob
right.
Perry, Cape Cod Engineering, and I'm
Okay.
representing the Sandbars LLC here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Day before yesterday, Bob.
Thank you,
before.
Paul. Yeah,
You're
I think we're moving toward a continuance for a week. We were expecting, and I know it was a heavy lift, to have an amended order ready for today's review. And it's my understanding that the work protocol from Robert Auer had been provided to Kelly, but I know you've had a staff change, and I'm not sure Paul had enough opportunity to get a hold of that. So I sent it to Paul on Monday, along with a letter from my office, simply describing again the two features of this amendment. I included photographs of Monday morning so that anyone who's interested could see the conditions down there, updated just as recent as possible. But we don't really have anything new to submit. But I felt that it was important to reiterate what we had already submitted for Paul's review. And it's my understanding that an amended order may be crafted and be available for you to review a week from today. Am I right, Paul?
I'm going to let the chair take that one.
Okay. That's substantially the situation. But what I'd like to do today, Bob, is one of the issues that we've had an opportunity since we've last talked to look at in a little bit more detail is the history of this. We've all had a chance to read the original order of conditions and look at some of the documents in the file surrounding the issuance of that order and where this trigger came from. And in order to proceed with this amendment, the commission is going to have to make a finding that that trigger has in fact been met. And we have all been, I think, dancing a little bit around that issue because we've had a lot of conversations about it has been substantially met, it's just short of it. And that's causing a little bit of concern among commission members in terms of the degree of comfort with which they can make a finding that the trigger has been met. So I'd like to drill down a little bit into that with you in terms of where we are with the erosion on this bank and where it's likely to go. It's also my understanding that there have been 2 one-year extensions granted. So the order of conditions was in 2016. The first extension was issued in 2019 and a second in 2020. Somehow we had been under the mistaken impression that there had been 3 and that you were up against a deadline of this April, but we still have a bit of time, but that's a different issue, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So just to clarify, as far as we can tell today, the extent of the scarp on the bank is about 1.8 feet from the stake. Is that correct?
I think that's approximately what we're looking at. There's a lot of finer detail that's never going to show up on a survey, but observations indicate that the bank is undercutting the area where the stake is. It just hasn't collapsed yet, but the stake has not fallen. And I don't want to go on too long because you may have more to say, but our premise for approaching you for the amendment, as you probably recall, that was in all the write-ups that we submitted during the fall, had to do with Robert Hour's concerns for their ability to mobilize. And if the trigger was, and for lack of a better word, I would say at hand, then it was safe to approach the committee to seek agreement for that, so that by the time they were mobilizing, perhaps the stake would have fallen by then. And the alternate is if the stake goes from a northeaster, by the time they can implement this project, the trigger will be past the trigger, for example. Yeah. So that was our premise. Okay. And yeah, we're almost there, and that our other premise was that and you may have discovered something in the record, but the elevation 46 was never a quantity that was discussed with us about why that would be the one to choose.
Right. So do I take it then from what you're saying that from Robert Hour's perspective, the time frame for gearing up to mobilize and get the job underway is months? Is that?
Well, no, not at present. They may have sensed that there was a momentum on this, but it's my understanding that once they know that they're able to begin, they go and they've got to choose their stone. They're loading it in Fall River, and it's going to be brought to Chatham by barge from Fall River. Now, that's only, in my opinion, that's only weeks. That's 2 or 3 weeks. But I think their point had to do with scheduling even for that episode. And the understanding was that if we're running up against the April 12th sunset, we could hit the trigger, but have no ability to do any work for a year. And so, again, that's a component in the reasoning to seek agreement that the trigger was at hand.
I see. Yep. And at the time, so let's look at the rate at which this bank has been moving. At the time that the order was issued back in 2016, the extent of the level of the scarp was roughly 17 something feet below where it is now. So somewhere in 48, 30 something. Is that?
Yes, we've provided over the years, we've provided traces, probably 3, but I think that's about right. I seem to think that, of course, it's not the same everywhere. The maximum seems to me that it, and I'm not prepared with that, but I can look it up.
Yeah,
but I think it's more than 17. I think it's on the order of 20 vertical feet.
Okay. And if you can explain to me, and I apologize for some of these questions, as I know we've been through this before, but I wasn't really focused on this particular aspect. Is the top of this bank is eroding faster than the bottom?
That's a great question. It depends. If you get a northeaster that comes in, and we've been lucky, the bottom causes for the overall effect to the bank. It's the loss of the bottom, the undercutting action on the bottom that causes for the collapse. Presently, the loose sand, I don't know if you ever looked at this closely, but it's very loose gravel. What's going on is with critters, some runoff. I think the upper eroded bank is probably sliding down to the bottom more than the bottom is moving today. So we've got 2 processes going on there.
And what's causing that? Is it the loss of a solid support to hold the top of it up?
Right. The various slides reveal this loose gravel and sand, but let me make it clear: the rate of loss, that's wind and runoff and the occasional, raccoon or critter that's going to run around on that bank, is nothing in comparison to what a northeaster will do to the bottom of the bank.
Right.
So it's slow. It's slow at the top, relative.
Okay. So at the rate of the vertical movement of the scarp that we can trace over the past 5 years, and I know you can't, averages don't really work in this situation because it doesn't move on quite a linear fashion, but roughly 4 feet a year is what it's been eroding at. Is that about right?
Well, that would be the average. I think it compressed. Most of this occurred between 2015 and 2018, March of early 2018.
Yeah.
And we got a break.
Yeah, but I understand that we can't count on that. It's
right.
only
It's episodic, and that term is used for these types of erosion conditions. So the concern was a good strong storm would really affect the bank in a big way, and we'd be, or the circumstances could be past the trigger at this point.
Right.
This is an isolated point.
Right. And if that happens, if no action is taken in the next couple of months, and we get hit by one of those nor'easters that we saw back in 2018, I know it's hard to say, but if the damage to the bottom is as it has been in the past, and the top slumps further, what's the risk to the structure if that actually happens? If we pass the stake, the trigger point.
All good questions. The risk to the structure on its just in a simple manner is low directly, but what was part of the review initially, I want to describe this carefully for you. We looked at where that bank, where the scarp will end up after a revetment goes in here. So the revetting the bottom of this particular bank is not going to stop the erosion of the upper scarp of the eroded bank. The very, very top of the coastal bank here is very steep. As it drops down, it looks like what is termed a wave cut bank. That is 100 years ago or more, this canyon-like coastal bank was probably less vegetated and more open. So if you revet it now or later at the bottom with a low profile revetment, this loose upper scarp where all the tree slides are coming from, that's going to continue to reform and creep up the bank. So we were concerned at approval time that the later condition could conceivably affect the coastal bank wave cut feature very, very close to the house. Now, there's no way to predict that that's going to be the outcome. It's a carefully analyzed shape of an angle of repose. Jim O'Connell was involved and worked that out and you've got it in your file. And so the prudent choice was to recognize the upper bank's going to continue to erode and to do something about the bottom, which is the cause of it all. So the house is not directly threatened from another northeaster, but it saying that it's not threatened, as I just did, isn't intended to undo the future case that we were concerned about.
Right. Okay. Well, the question of whether or not the house is threatened has been made and decided, I would say, by the issuance of the order of conditions back in 2016. So regardless of what we may think about that order was issued, and it does allow the revetment to be built when the trigger is met. And I guess the question I've been circling around and trying to get to is what's the harm in waiting until it is actually met, until those last 22 inches or so?
What's the harm? Well, I would be it's in these matters there's concerns of landowners, there's concerns of the Conservation Commission, and I think the harm is unknown. It's probably a collective concern of putting it in the unknown, where it's unless you mentioned earlier that a third extension is available to the applicant, then a wait and see approach, it simply collides with the premise that we laid out for the contractors, or the contractor actually laid out for us to examine. And if we go into 2 or 3 more weeks, it's not going to be done. I don't believe it'll be done this year anyway. And then we're just moving into a condition that is not known. And I don't want to cause anybody any fear. In my work, we tend to believe that we can fix a lot of things, regardless of the conditions that develop. And I don't want to change the scenery on this project and say that if the bank erodes a lot more, that we'll be able to treat it just fine. It's difficult. I understand what you're getting at. If you wait till the stake falls over, we'll be past the trigger rather than at the edge of the trigger.
Right.
And so in a cooperative sense, given the rate of erosion, given the general sense that we're not going to get a long-term break in the weather, although it's been great. I'm not the type of engineer that's looking forward to coastal storms, and I just believe that there's enough evidence that that trigger is going to come and go, that the amendment put before you now was a reasonable request, given all the factors. And that's really, I hate to be going on with a lot of words, but that's where I'm at on this. It's a little philosophical.
Well, it is. I agree, and I also want to recognize that when you first came to us, it was not with a request for an amendment. It was a request to have this conversation about whether the trigger's been met. And in the course of considering that is when, during a site visit, Callie recognized the beginning of the dune formation, and that's what made us say we need to amend this to provide for the protection of the dune during the construction period. So that's how we ended up where we are.
Yes, yes,
yeah.
and coming out of that is something that wasn't part of the original project, which was a enhancement of any foredune that would be left in place when the project is over. Anyway, you could call it a minor benefit. It could be.
Yeah. We take them as we find them, Bob.
Yep.
All right. Let me open it up to questions from other commissioners. I've taken up enough time with my questions. Bob Rawls?
Well, I think you've asked the questions that were on my mind, and it is difficult to predict the effect of, let us say, waiting a year. I'm personally reluctant to pull the trigger on the trigger since it's close, but it's certainly not there. Given the new information that there's another opportunity for a year extension, that would give us an opportunity to have the trigger actually met, and also see what happens to that dune, and see whether it does something we don't expect. So that's where my thinking is right now. And the property does seem to be quite a ways away from the top of that bank, and so it doesn't seem, and I don't hear anyone saying the property is in imminent danger. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Bob Del Vecchio, what do you think?
I got a question for Bob. If we wait and do the construction of the revetment later, will that have a negative effect on the entire coastal bank if we wait, as opposed to building a revetment now?
It all depends on the weather. If you had a spate of heavy-duty coastal storms that really chewed into that bank bottom, you'd go right through your trigger. You'd keep going at that location. The only thing I can say is that the resulting top of scarp, long after the revetment is completed, will be farther landward if you wait. And when you look at a bank that's eroded this significantly, you can't help but realize that the overall is that it's going to be an open sand bank more so than it is. The inlet is moving south. It's got a little bit of shelter inside of Turn Island, but it is it's just a matter of, you're going to see more erosion of that bank, more tree slides. And I don't want to go on here, but when I first came upon this project, I think it was 2010, 2011, and we had a fiber roll revetment, and then that got put aside after the fiber rolls that were down there got wiped out in one storm. And when I came upon the location for the very first time, the bank was vertical. That's the immediate result of a terrific northeaster. The bottom 12 or 15 feet of that bank goes to just an untenable angle, and it begins to cleave back from there. So I can just say that the scarp top, where the bank becomes an open sand and tree slide, that's going to move up, even if we revetted it today, and it will move up more if we revet it tomorrow.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I just jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I'm certainly not an expert on the erosion issue, but the system out there is very dynamic, and it's changed a lot. As you said, Turn Island is really almost blocking this property, so there's sort of a channel in front of it, and most of the erosion came from one of those winter storms we had. But I mean, waiting a year, I don't think anyone can say one way or the other where this is going to go and how long it's going to take. So I don't think the house is in any danger, but you know, to predict what the condition of that bank's going to be in a year is really a guess, I think, on anybody's part, no matter whether he's a coastal geologist or, and we had people on both sides saying different things that were experts when we were here the last time. So that's all I have to add.
Okay, thank you. Bob Delvecchio, do you have anything else? Other questions?
No, I think I'm done, Janet. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, I had a couple of concerns. The special condition number 1 sets it at 46 feet for the trigger. When I look at the plan, and maybe it's because they used old data, I don't know, but the plan shows a scarp varying by location across the face between 30 and 40 feet. And, you know, kind of goes, I assume it's kind of wavy as it moves across. So I don't know if the plan is just using old data or whatever, but it doesn't reflect what I'm hearing the testimony be, which is that things are getting awfully darn close to the trigger point. I have to admit, I like the idea of the dune representing a changed circumstance, since it is literally rather new. If more, and I recognize the dune could be, you know, next big storm, that dune is gone, probably, at least the dune that's there now. I could support moving forward with revetment if there was, well, for the sake of the record, a better characterization of where the scarp is than it's on the current plan. But also if the dune was enhanced or helped, nourished, planted, you know, expanded in size so that it could perhaps withstand at least a moderate storm and not be obliterated. But that's as far as I would go without some change in the record and so on, in order to support the type of findings that we would have to make in order to do either say, you know, hey, do it now or do it later. I mean, the record is weak, unfortunately, and you know, nothing more than a revised plan would certainly fill in that gap of having the record reflect the site what's happening at the site, because the mapping of the scarp would give the impression that there's a considerable distance to go before you hit the trigger, whereas based on site visits and so on, it sounds like the scarp is actually much closer to the trigger point than what is shown on the plan.
I appreciate those comments. I want to explain what you're looking at, if I might. Just we had the whole bank was updated this year, back in February. It's important that I tell you that as you can see on that plan, provided you have the latest one, there's a very uneven scarp. And yeah, some places it's down around 28. And if you look at the location where my attention has been brought by the owner and his representatives, it's a discrete area about in the middle of the property that the erosion jumps up to the elevation 44 to 45 contour. And it should be clearly legible on the plan, but if it isn't, we will get that made clearer. But it's important that I tell you, I think, that the trigger is the trigger. The language in the order said it when the erosion reaches the elevation 46 contour, at any point on the bank. And it was, I think, recognizing that the erosion was not uniform and that there are these valleys that come down where the slope is less, and you're just going to have, you'll never get to the 46 in those areas for years and years and years. And by the time you get to 46 in some of those areas, you'll be at the very top of the bank in the others. So it's a discrete area, and I'd be happy to try to make that clearer for you. You know, some would say, well, that's just one little spot, but it's the trigger.
I think we all recognize, Bob, that the language of the condition does clearly say in any place. So, and I think Tom's point is well taken. I'm looking at and I've studied this as well and been a little confused that the latest site plan shows the February 2020. It says top of scarp. Hard to say what it's pointing to. There seems to be an arrow, but it doesn't seem to be going toward anything that's meaningful. And it could be taken, as he pointed out, to be saying that the top of the scarp is roughly at 30 something to 40. So yes, if you could make that adjustment on there to show visually how far it has reached in that one area, I think that would be very helpful.
We can do that. It's longer than a foot. Well, it's almost the length of a football field. The property, and these are 2-foot contour intervals at 30 scale.
Yeah.
I'll admit, you know, you could go cross-eyed looking at it.
Yeah. Okay.
Janet, could I just,
Go ahead, Tom.
I did have I believe the most recent plan, because it's December 15th. It says update topo and so on. And actually, maybe to help improve the plan, do a blow up, so to speak,
yes,
of that area
exactly
where the scarp moves upwards to better define
that's
what
a good idea.
What the degraded area is.
Yeah, there's a number 23 with an arrow on this plan.
Yeah.
That's the location where we're approaching elevation 45. So at 45.
Yeah, you're right. It shows it at 43, and it's but you're right. That's getting close.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So that 23 signifies the change in the erosion from September 2015 to February 2020.
That's correct. There's a top of scarp for 915 and the top of scarp for 220, and there's a 23-foot. I'm sorry. I believe it's 23 feet laterally, and it's going from about 24 up to 44. So it's 23 feet laterally and 20 feet vertically.
Right. Okay.
Sorry about the phone.
That's okay.
That's so rare that happens.
Yeah. Tom, other questions?
Now.
No, I like to see some support given to the dune.
Yep, I agree. Okay, well, I've asked my questions. I agree with Tom at the end of the day. I'm concerned. I mean, I recognize that there's another year and 2 or 3 months theoretically available to take this action. I worry, though, that delaying it will end up resulting in more environmental damage if we say it can't be done, and then we are subject to a nor'easter and some significant erosion, and the bottom of the bank is taken out. The revetment's going to be built. You've got an order that allows it. And I think if you make that change, I can support doing the amendment now in light of the rate of erosion and the uncertainty of the future. I worry that if we wait and something happens, we will regret that. Whereas on the other hand, I do believe the revetment's going to be built. There's no doubt that the erosion is significant, and you've got the order. So, any last comments from anybody? Now we're not entirely united. That's okay. Does anybody want to make a motion one way or another?
May I add one thing?
Certainly.
It's Bob Terry here. Along the coast of Chatham, I know there's at least one vacant lot that the Conservation Foundation supported a revetment. They supported this revetment back, Mr. Michael Ford, Attorney Michael Ford, spoke to the issue. You probably have it in the record somewhere, but Michael Ford at that time, and I know there's been changes, made the statement that there's a conservation restriction, and that the revetment was going to protect the land that the conservation restriction was protecting, in the sense that the wooded character, the forest, and what was discussed at that time was some form of erosion protection would allow to stop the tree slides, stop the loss of the forest on that coastal bank. So there was a measure of habitat protection involved in the original approval, and I just wanted to mention that to you.
Okay.
Janet, if I could ask one question?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, you just touched on an important issue that I hadn't thought about before, which is, would there be any benefit in this mix of things that might be done to, I haven't done a site inspection, so I apologize for that. But would there be any benefit in doing plantings or other things to help stabilize the bank in some way, in addition to
Yes.
whatever else is done to take care of the situation?
Absolutely. There's this new component we're talking about, revegetating the foreshore, but switchgrass, Pennsylvania broom sedge, what we call the warm season native Northeast mix. I know on this plan there was, or at least in the application, there is a mention that this bank will benefit from a beachgrass planting directly above the revetment, but also note number 16 talks about all the species that are in that Northeast upland warm season mix, that for fairly short money, several $100s in seed, you can throw seed, native grass seed, all over that coastal bank to give it that one leg up to begin to develop a grass cover where it has some stability. I did say it's going to continue to erode at the top, but as grasses come in, as chunks of those trees begin to, they'll slide down, but they will fix themselves in place. So the seeding under note 16 is part of this application.
Oh, okay. I hadn't picked up on that. Would there be any benefit to putting a vegetated I can't even pronounce words this morning, pardon me, a vegetated strip across the top of the bank?
Not
Would
at
that
the top,
help at all?
Not at the top of the bank. It's actually a 3 to 4 foot vertical drop at the very top, but the seed, and I mean the very top of the eroded scarp. The upper bank area is a little bit invasive, but it's a coastal plant community of scrubs. It's doing, it slides right down the bank. It's so loose, but it's okay. I don't see any need for the very top, but the seeding is going to be important.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll ask again, does anybody want to make a motion at this point? I don't think I'm allowed to.
Okay, I'm gonna stick my neck out for the
Go
first
ahead,
time
Tom.
since
Do
I
it.
was appointed. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the plan as I understand it, which is we're talking about a revetment, we're talking about plantings all over the bank, we're talking about, and this is my addition, nourishing and supporting the dune that is beginning to form. That would be it.
And are you willing to add into that to take this to the work session for review of a amended order that contains all of that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the motion. All right, roll call vote for 520 Shore Road to approve the plan as Bob will amend it. There'll still be one more amendment coming in to focus a little bit more carefully on the area of scarp as it is known at the moment and where and how close. So it shows it close to the trigger. And to prepare an amendment. Commissioner Rawls.
Well, let me just make one more comment about the comments about tossing seed onto the upper part of the bank. I would think that if the applicant were really interested and motivated to preserve that bank as much as possible, that they would want more than just tossing in $100 worth of seed up there and hope that it takes hold. So any chance that you could, in the amendment,
Let me just point out, this is an amendment to the order. The original order has planting requirements in it.
all the way to the top?
No, I need to make it clear. That's a good question. That bank
Okay.
is not stable. The sand slides are going to continue. I use the phrase, give Mother Nature a leg up. We're going to plant the bottom of that slope above the revetment where the plantings that are down there, beach grass, predominantly beach grass, above the revetment, will act as a backstop. The seed is really, it could be a lost leader, but it could also succeed. And I think if you go look out there, you see these tree slides. If you can fetch some grass to develop around those, you can begin to stabilize the slope, but it's going to continue to slide, as I've said. And I'm just, the reason note 16 is in here is that there's every reason to think that there's value in pursuing efforts to vegetate the open sand slide. And it may not be entirely successful until it relaxes. I don't know what else to tell you.
I think Bob makes a very good point that perhaps we should require plugs to be used instead of seed. If the applicant is willing to do that in order to make us happy about the project.
Where the bank is stable, there's no objection to plugs, but no one should plant plugs in a landslide. So that is just a qualifier. If you picture that loose gravel, we're vegetating everywhere that it's practical to do so.
Okay, I'm making notes.
Yeah.
That's
Bob?
it for me, Janet.
Okay, Bob, back to you again.
And I concur with Bob's comments.
Yeah, it still seems that more could be done to stabilize that bank. We see restoration orders all the time for coastal banks where, you know, the trees, the dead trees that are falling down and scarping out the upper banks are removed, and you smooth it out. You put seeds down, you put plugs down, you put covers over it, and then you do a thorough job at preserving the bank. So anyway, that's what I would have expected to be going on here if there's so much concern about erosion.
I'd like to amend my motion to incorporate Bob's comments. I think he makes some very good points that I should have picked up on myself, but thank you, Bob.
I don't disagree with Bob's comments either. Note 15 and 16 on our plan addresses what we're discussing. And if there's, it's just that this sand slide, in my opinion, never lent itself to jute mat and plug planting except in certain areas. Note 15 speaks to that those tree slides are not dead, and they may fetch up and remain viable. And so our proposal is to vegetate everywhere possible that's practical. That's what 15 says.
Madam Chair, because I have to write this sort of, can you read 15 and 16, Bob, into the record? Because I don't think anybody's looking at that right at the moment.
I'll say note 15, surface root mats, shrubs, and tree roots, isolated landslides on the slope shall be maintained and not removed. Grass planting shall surround these slides to the degree possible. And then 16 says disturbed areas above the completed stone array on the bank shall be intensively planted, 12 inches on center, with American beach grass and other coastal grasses such as broom sedge, deer tongue, quackgrass, switchgrasses, and Spartina patens. Immediate overseeding with seed varieties is recommended as weather permits. So while we, I can provide you details on this if you like. The review,
yes.
The review, what we concluded in 2015 was they were satisfied with note 15 and 16. I don't believe that we ever gave you a specific slope restoration plan because everybody agreed it was an open sand slide. And we can still get you details on that. You've asked for an amendment to our plan with the blow up. I have no trouble isolating those areas that I believe planting is practical. And I can get you a plan that shows those areas and I can detail. I prefer plugs myself. It's just that seed is one of those things that you wouldn't get seed to blow in on the wind. And a lot of wild things do arrive in the form of seed. And so that was my comment that I made about the seed, because I felt that it was something good to bring in. But let me get that for you if you like. I have no trouble doing it. We're planning on vegetating as much of the slope as practical.
I think that would be very helpful.
That would be helpful. So those are two changes that you will do. And is it possible, Bob, to do that in the next, couple days?
Yes. I mean, it's not something that I anticipated, but I think it's important for you to have the detail if that's what's if you wish. I don't see anything wrong with it. No, I'll be able to produce something like that for you.
The other option is that, depending on the urgency of this, the other option would be to take more time and move this to March instead of February for the review of an order. Right.
Well, according to everybody that's been involved in this at my end, they're interested in making inroads toward this project this winter.
Yep.
And so that they can be planting grass in early April.
Yep. Gotcha.
So
okay.
I'll do. I've got.
I have to do a lot of work very quickly to make this happen. So.
You'll get a schematic of areas on this bank, at least today or tomorrow, that are viable, and I'll isolate those and I'll show you where the loose sand slides are. I don't think you can do anything about this gravel. If you go down and look at it, you'll be shocked. You can't climb on it very easily.
No, I know. My dog tried to go up, and even she couldn't do it. So, she was chasing a rabbit. That tells me something.
They put ladders down sometimes. This is, 40 or 50 feet of open sand slide, loose gravel.
Yep. Okay.
All right, so we're back. I will vote for this. The chair has convinced me with her arguments that even though I wasn't initially going to go this direction, but yes, I can do it.
Yeah, it took me a while to work my way around to it too, Bob. Okay, so roll call vote to move forward with prepare an amended order. Bob will get us the details on the planting and revise the site plan. So Bob, you just voted yes, is that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, Commissioner Del Vecchio,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We all have a lot of work to do in the next couple of days, but we should have something to look at and review on the work session. We will continue this to the work session on the 3rd of February.
Thank you for your time on this.
Thank you.
I appreciate the discussion. It was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Sorry it took a lot longer. We're already off the schedule, but oh well. What can you do? All right. All ready to move on.
Okay. Next on the agenda is a request to amend. The address is 110 Old Salt Works Road, Goodrich Chatham Realty Trust, SE 10 3263. This is a phase 2 for the amendment. The amendment requests an amending existing order to include proposed relocation of a generator, installation of flood-proof enclosures, replacement and installation of new fences, redesign of the front gate, and a revision to the driveway configuration and installation of mitigation. Assessors map 13M, parcel C25.
Good morning. For the record, Sean Riley with Coastal Engineering. Also in attendance with me is attorney Michael Ford. Just to refresh the commission, we had continued the hearing until after seeking approval from the zoning board. We have received approval from the zoning board of appeals and are now returning back to the commission. I believe that we addressed a majority of the questions with regard to the fencing, the vault enclosures, the relocation of the driveway gate, relocating the generator outside of the velocity zone and also outside of the no disturb zone, and some minor modifications of the pervious paver driveway that resulted in a reduction in coverage within the no disturb zone and the addition of mitigation plantings. So with that, I'll just open it up to any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Riley. You're right, I don't think we didn't ask for any revisions. The plan is as it was before. I don't really have any questions, so let me open it up to other commissioners to ask questions. Anybody?
Clark.
Yes, Don.
I'm still troubled by the 6-inch vertical spacing on the fence rather than having the 6 inches underneath. And the reason for that is just I started at least doing a calculation in my head about passage through a vertical slot as opposed to a one that's on the ground. And I don't think a 6-inch vertical slot is equivalent to 6-inch clearing off of the ground. I can start thinking about what happens to animals, how their structure would interact with a hard surface like a fence versus being able to spread themselves out, have gravity help them get underneath and so on. And that's the only thing about your plan that I really find troubling is the fact that the vertical break is in there instead of a one at off the bottom. So if you want to comment on that, I'd be happy to listen.
Sure. As a matter of fact, the gap is significantly larger with the vertical spacing. If you take an 8-foot section fence and do the math on that for a 6-inch gap, it's 4 square feet as opposed to 4 foot high with 6-inch gaps.
Sean, and ask folks on the phone, please, can everybody mute yourselves, please? We're getting a whole lot of feedback, making it hard to hear. Thank you. Okay, Sean, sorry.
Sure, that's okay. A vertical area for the wildlife to pass through is significantly greater on the vertical end. If you have gaps every 6 inches over that vertically over that 8-foot length, you essentially have half of the fence area that is open for passage. The other concern is having that gap on the bottom. For anybody that went out to the site, you can see that we've got an active dune out there, and maintaining a gap on the bottom of the fence essentially would go away as the dune moves. So this would allow the passage of the dune through the fence as well. and to migrate through that fence. So we see this as a significant benefit in this scenario over having a gap on the bottom of the fence.
Thank you. Good point.
Okay. Any other questions, Tom?
No, that's it.
Other commissioners?
Yeah, Bob Rawls. I mean, I guess I have concerns about the fence, and I understand the logic of having the gap vertically rather than horizontally under the fence. I'm not sure the 6-inch wide gap is going to allow every creature through that would want to go through there. But aside from that, well, this is essentially a dog fence, isn't it? Am I incorrect on this?
Yes, and just to remind the commission, there is a fence, a picket fence there now on the property in this exact location that has 2-inch pickets that if this isn't approved, that portion isn't approved and that picket fence stays. So we're essentially making the situation better by increasing the gap width between the fence. Just to point that out.
Right. When I looked at it, it appeared to be what we see used for sand or drift retention along coastal beaches, and that's the way I saw it.
Yeah, to answer your question, it is a dog fence. It's always been a dog fence. There was a chain link fence in the past that was removed and substituted with the wooden picket fence that you see now. And now we're looking to improve it by putting in a picket fence that has broader gaps.
Right. So if there's a storm there, the little picket fences that are there now, they don't pose nearly as much of a boating hazard as would these larger 4-foot tall. How wide are the slats on this proposed fence? Anyway, those would be floating out in the harbor, and so I do have concerns about that.
So this,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, this site has seen significant storm flowage, and typically it comes in through the northwestern abutting property, the Conservation Trust land. For anybody that, like myself, has had a chance to go out there and observe how the floodwaters come in, they come in through that property, they get onto Old Salt Works Road, and then they back in through the driveway and basically backfeed the site and have fed up into the previous house that was there. And those fences have not floated away. They haven't moved. So we'd see that to continue to occur, that it would end around the dune and come in through the abutting property and essentially be a still water elevation within that area.
All right. Well, that is good to know. That's comforting. And I guess really my final concern is that we are increasingly asked to allow fences in no disturb zones, and we have disapproved them recently because the normal reasons associated with what you can and can't do in a no disturb zone is called a no disturb zone for a reason. And we probably grant these sorts of things more often than we really should. And this is, to me, another case where we're approving a dog fence in a no disturb zone. So I understand your reasoning or your logic or your argument is that it's a better fence from a conservation perspective, but nevertheless, it is still approving a larger fence in a no disturb zone. So I have an issue. I'm concerned about it, and I just have a hard time being in favor of this. So that's really all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Bob Delvecchio?
No, I have no questions, Janet.
Okay, thank you. I too have concerns. I mean, fences in both no disturb zones and flood zones are not a great idea, to put it mildly. However, there is an existing fence, so which is permitted in both the VE zone and in the no disturb zone. So if we disapprove this, the fence stays. So the fact that they're replacing it with a better structure, better for the environment, better for the wildlife, gives me something to lean on to make another exception to our rule that we don't really favor these things, but it is there already, and it's going to be, there'll be a net improvement. So those would need to be specific findings to justify this decision. If there are no other questions, I think we are ready to then continue this to the work session on February 3rd. for an amendment to the order. Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to continue this to the work session to approve it as said. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Is there a second?
Bob's persuaded me. So I'm not going to second.
Okay, I guess I can. Interesting vote. We'll see. There's a motion to continue this to the work session. Roll call vote. Commissioner Rawls.
Oh, Janet, you have unfortunately persuaded me once again.
You just persuaded Tom.
Yeah, I know. It's yeah.
It's not easy. You
No,
know,
it isn't. It isn't easy
very
at all.
tough.
And what I worry about is that we do set precedent by doing these sorts of things. So the next applicant comes before us with something that's analogous, slightly different, but essentially the same. And you know, we as we go down the slippery slope, we have a harder and harder time approving it.
That's true. But if they come before us with an existing situation that's permitted and they're proposing to improve that in some way, then, you know, that's enough to justify.
Yeah, the only thing I can say is that, yes, on a specific example, I think I can probably support it.
Oh, that one you mean?
Sorry? Is that
All right.
Paul, you need to mute. So how did you just vote there, Bob?
Yeah, I just reluctantly, yes.
I was muted.
Oh, I don't know who. I apologize. I thought that was your voice.
That was me. I'm sorry, Jan.
Oh, okay. So Bob Del Vecchio, motion comes to you. How do you vote?
Aye.
Tom?
Well, continuing it to the work session, I don't have a problem, but I will be a no vote on the project.
Okay. And I'll vote okay for the, yes, aye for the continuance. So we will take this to the work session. Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Thank you.
All right, Paul, moving on.
Yes, okay. Next on the agenda is a notice of intent. The address is 314 Morris Island Road, Timothy Sheehan, trustee of 692 Tremont Unit.
I think well, hang on. I think we have 22 Captain Sears. Is that?
Sorry, I apologize. I skipped right over.
Yep.
Just trying to move things along.
Can't get there despite skipping them though.
I'm gonna back up and strike everything I just said for the record. And the next item on the agenda is, again, another request to amend 22 Captain Sears Way, Peter and Julia Johannesson, SE 10 3354, request to amend existing order of conditions under SE 10 3354 to include the demolition of an original dwelling, construction of a new dwelling, install new pool, patio and walkways, and a driveway. Implement a land management plan and planting of native plant species at 22 Captain Sears Way, assesses map 11C parcel 11, H17.
Good morning, David Clark, on behalf of the Johanssons.
Morning.
Morning. So the Johanssons purchased this project from Eastwood Companies, and they wanted some significant changes to the house. All the changes are actually a benefit to the resource area. What's shown on the revised plan is actually a 124 square foot reduction over the existing permit.
And overall coverage or just a footprint?
That's overall
Okay.
coverage.
Okay.
And outside of your jurisdiction, just to let you know, the house in total has been reduced by 565 square feet. So site-wise is a even larger improvement. We're not any closer to the resource area. Actually, the northeast corner of the house has been reduced, and the setback has been increased. So if you look at the originally permitted plan, a corner of the house was over the 100-foot setback from the top of the bank. It's been pulled back significantly in that corner. So overall, there are improvements throughout the project from what was originally approved.
Okay. This is a phase one of the request to amend.
Correct.
So we are really only considering whether this should go forward as an amendment to the order of conditions that was issued back in, I think, 2019, or whether it needs to go for a new order of conditions. I mean, to me, I see that the design is entirely different. However, it's still construction of a new dwelling and a pool, and it's got a wooden deck rather than a terrace. It looks like there's a little bit less lawn. It looks like, and we'll get into this in more detail in phase two, but to me, it looks like it's a similar concept and a reduced environmental impact. So my own view is that this would qualify as an amendment, despite the fact that it's a different design. From a regulatory perspective, it's similar enough. But let me open it to questions from other commissioners who may view it differently. Bob?
No, I see it the same way. I don't see an issue with considering this as an amendment. There's nothing that's more intrusive than the previous application into the resource area.
Bob Delvecchio?
Yes, I agree. I agree with Bob and you, Janet. Less impact, so I'd move it forward. Thank you.
Okay, Tom?
I disagree. I think our hands are tied by Wetland Program Policy 85-4. I don't think the changes are minor. Also, there's some paperwork that the policy requires to be done that I don't see in the record. I assume that this was noticed in the newspaper. If it wasn't, then that's one shortcoming. The policy also requires a notice be given to the abutters of the change. I see nothing in the record that shows that that has happened. And also, there's a requirement that the changes, along with a copy of the revised plans, are supposed to be sent to DEP, and that hasn't been done. So as far as I can tell, we can't validly do this.
That's phase two, I believe.
Yep, that all happens at the next phase. All the notifications and the newspaper and the abutters and DEP all is part of the phase two, is the part of this process that is most like the filing of an original NOI. It triggers all of those requirements. At this point, we're just telling them which set of requirements, and they're virtually the same, they need to pursue. But David, did you want to respond to Tom?
I would just agree with the chair. This is phase one. It's strictly asking the commission for permission to file for the amended order of conditions. So this is technically not a filing for an amended order of conditions. It's a request to file for an amended order of conditions.
That's what it is. Does that help you, Tom?
Not really. I'm not sure I read the requirements in the same way. I understand the argument that David is making. He's being very articulate as usual. I'm concerned that this is not a simple change. These are, I think very significant changes to the approved plan. So I don't think this is a proper way to do it. I think he needs to refile. And I understand, phase one, phase two. I don't understand why you have that artificial division anyway, but I don't think it can be done legally. That's just my opinion.
David, why did you guys decide to pursue this as an amendment rather than a new filing?
The main reason is a significant portion of the project is already underway. There was a demolition of the existing house and restoration of the no disturb zone through Blue Flax Design. So it would be extremely difficult to close out that order in order to proceed with a whole new filing. Yep. So it just seemed simpler for everybody involved to proceed as an amendment.
I get that. I hadn't really focused on that, but we're about we're about halfway through the existing order of conditions, and a lot of the work has been done. And we're now approaching the construction portion. So you're right. We would not be able to issue a certificate of compliance to close out that existing order. And it would be administratively very difficult to proceed.
Primarily, there's a significant amount of mitigation attributed to a house that won't get constructed.
Right. Okay. All right.
And Madam Chair, Bill Riley, just again for Mr. Clark's benefit, the requirement that Tom is suggesting, all it does is increase the administration load on your commission to little purpose other than honoring a phrase in the regulations that I don't think is particularly significant. And the goal of the commission is to have projects come through to fruition that are done appropriately. And here we're suggesting that the planting plan is going to remain the same or be more vigorous, but the coverage on the lot's actually going down by over 500 square feet. So I think you could. I think the terms are malleable enough that you could say that this is a minor change.
Okay. I got stopped dead in my tracks by the thought of trying to close out the existing order and issue some kind of a certificate of compliance for a project that is underway and partly done and partly not done, and trying to figure out how to do that and move forward with a new order. So, and I do know that the proposed mitigation has not really changed, and the plan that Blue Flax has filed and that we approved remains the mitigation plan. So, with that, I'm willing to go forward and move to the next phase here to file all of the requirements for the proposed amendment. So is there a motion to approve the request to amend the order of conditions?
Yes, Bob Rawls, I move to approve phase 1 amendment to this project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote to approve the phase 1 request to amend. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark,
I have to vote no because I think the policy ties our hands. And having said that, I also agree with Bill, probably for the first time in recorded history. But I agree with him that I don't think the program policy is well thought through. But even so, I think it ties our hands. So
okay. I need to check that. I haven't checked it. I'm going to vote yes. So you're approved to go forward to phase 2 of this request to amend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes?
No, he was thanking you.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say something. Okay. Thank you all. All right. All right, Paul, ready to move on. Now we come to the next one.
Next on the agenda, we move to notices of intent. The address is 314 Morris Island Road. Timothy Sheehan, trustee, 692 Tremont, Unit 4, Realty Trust, SE 10 314, SE 10. I still don't have an SE number on this. I'll check it while we're discussing it. After the fact, notice of intent for the proposed installation of a garden shed and garden at 314 Morris Island Road, Assessors Map 15A, Parcel H7.
Good morning. Bill Riley and Thad Eldridge.
Good morning. Thad, can you share and put the plan up for reference? Thank you.
Just a moment.
Okay, Bill, you can begin while he's doing
Okay,
that.
well, this is a situation where the property owner loves the idea of organic gardening. And so he the area on the property where he wanted to put his organic garden was an area that had been identified to be naturalized. And through creative imagination, he presumed that an organic garden was the equivalent of the order. So with this stage, I mean, the garden's been there actually for a couple of years now. So he'd like to have a shed and be able to keep his gardening going in that location. This is what we used to call, when I went to court, sort of a motion for mercy. I mean, it seems like a harmless project, flies in the face of the previous order. But he, Mr. Sheehan, who's a very nice guy, has asked us to basically come to the commission and discuss whether there's some way that he can keep his organic garden going there. And Thad can address the regulations.
Okay. Thad?
Tag, I'm in. So I have provided a few things on here. I've gone through the performance standards. This area, it is subject to the floodplain. We're not really affecting the coastal bank that's there. We're not proposing a CES. There's already a bit of some from the tide gate itself. The garden itself is stable. The quality of the wetland functions are certainly questionable. In 1957, the area was regraded, and that Tidal Creek was created and relocated. It actually used to be in the road layout, or what is now the road layout. We have no mapped rare or endangered species in the upland, so or in the above the water, so that's decent. The area itself, we're not connected to any other real wild area. There's a fringe that goes around the property itself, connects to a little bit of a fringe on the neighboring property, but otherwise we're going across the street for wildlife migration. We have no tree maintenance, no invasive plant species are proposed. Several animals have enjoyed the bounty of the garden. He's had pumpkins in there that were ransacked, and there are certainly a lot of pollinators that come to visit. He's actually not using any fertilizers at all. He has a completely organic strategy that recycles everything that he produces in the garden. Salt marshes, the garden and shed do not directly affect the nearby salt marshes. It's really the tidal creek that's closest to the garden itself. So we do have variances requested all over because it has to be. The garden itself is pervious. The shed will be properly anchored to reduce the chance of debris. And that shed is really there to store tools. For the land under the ocean requirements, we're not altering the tidal creek itself. The proposal is not producing any pollutants because he's keeping everything contained with using organic compost. Work protocol wise, it's basically complete, so we don't have to worry. And the alternatives that we gave were very meager because we're opening this up for discussion, but it's the applicant's fond of his garden. He'd like to keep it. Then the alternatives would be remove or relocate. We're not sure where relocation could occur.
Okay. Can you, zoom in just a little bit more on that so we can. Okay, thank you. So all of those issues about the location of the garden and the shed within the no disturb zone to the coastal bank are one thing. And we can address that and get into that and go through the variance analysis. But the preliminary problem, I think, is that the order of conditions when this house was constructed had mitigation for the construction of the house, and the garden and the shed are in not only the no disturb zone, they're in the mitigation area. And the order of conditions has a special condition that says, as an ongoing condition, that the mitigation area shall be allowed to naturalize in perpetuity. And goes on to say that naturalize means the area is left undisturbed, no use of fertilizers, no removal of leaf litter or duff layer, no weeding, no subsurface irrigation, no hardscape, significantly no structures of any kind, no creation of lawn, no dumping of yard debris. So the bigger problem, beside the no disturb zone that he's facing, is this ongoing condition. And we've been down this road before about the commission looking at an ongoing condition that a prior commission has imposed and feeling reluctant at best and unwilling to go against a special condition that the commission has imposed as an ongoing condition for lots of viable and valid reasons. We don't want our conditions to be ignored by a subsequent commission. So the unfortunate aspect of this is the location of the garden in this mitigation area that is subject to this special ongoing condition. I'll also just note, from looking at it, it's not only in a mitigation zone, it's also in the what's supposed to be a vegetated buffer strip to the top of the coastal bank. I think that, I mean, there's a conversation that could be had at some point about the relative environmental benefit of a purely naturalized area versus an organic garden. I can see that there could be arguments on both sides in terms of the overall environmental benefit, but nonetheless, even as an organic garden, this garden is fenced in to beat the band. It's got, I don't know how critters are partaking of the bounty, because I don't see how they can even get to it. There's a rabbit-proof fence around the whole thing, and then it looks like every plant in there has other metal fencing around it. So that's certainly an issue. And the shed is bumps up against the no structures of any kind in the mitigation area language. So I run into this problem right off the bat about I don't think I even reached the analysis of whether it can be done in a no disturb zone under a variance, because I just can't get past the ongoing condition. But let me open it up. I don't have any questions. I think it's clear enough. You've presented the facts. There's no facts that I need to draw out at this point. So let me ask other commissioners their reactions to this. Bob?
Yeah, I've had the same concerns that you do, Janet. What hasn't been mentioned so far that is also that there was basically a road carved through the NDZ mitigation area to the shed. So it's a profound disturbance of a previous mitigation area. For the reasons you stated, it's hard for me to say, well, we'll just forget about that. Yep, that's it.
Okay, Bob?
Same. I mean, I looked at the property the other day, and I saw the fencing around the garden. I saw piles of debris around the garden. I noticed the shed right off the road. And considering this was a previous mitigation area, I know it was supposed to naturalize, but I know there were invasives around the plants and so forth. Those could have been removed. But I can't see both those, the shed and the garden, staying in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
I agree with your comments.
Okay. So there we have it. I mean, I guess the next question, gentlemen, is I think you've got a unanimous view coming from the commission that this can't be done in a mitigation area that is subject to an ongoing condition to naturalize. So that takes you then to where could it be moved? I mean, the significant portion of the property is in the no disturb zone. As I look at that, at the boundary, it runs, you can pull out a little bit, Thad. So that no disturb zone line runs right through the house and out the other side. I mean, I guess I should put the question to the commission. Would anybody be willing to consider an organic garden and possibly a shed in the no disturb zone, but outside of the mitigation area? Is that an option? Well, let me ask you guys, is that an option for the homeowner?
Well, Madam Chair, Bill Riley, it's certainly something we'd like to consider. Other than getting an absolute no, I would say yes. The answer, we'd like to be able to explore that option.
Okay, then maybe it's premature to, unless you want to hear the view of the commission about whether they'd be willing to consider either the garden or the shed or both in the no disturb zone outside of the mitigation area. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'd like to. Yeah, because we don't want to spend time.
Yeah, that's what
if
Well, I think you'll find, and I'll just kick it off by saying that there's a lot less objection to an organic garden, and I think we have seen this in no disturb zones. The issue we run into is the fencing. I understand from a homeowner's perspective that if you're going to the trouble of having a vegetable garden, an organic one, you want to have some vegetables that are left to you and that don't go to the critters. But fencing in the no disturb zone, as we keep coming up against, is a problem, and a shed is also a problem. So I think it would take some creative thinking on the part of the homeowner to figure out how to continue having an organic garden and raising the vegetables on his lot. But I would encourage a thinking about that and come up with something. Let me ask other commissioners, are you willing to consider something like that, Bob? It's theoretical at this point. We don't know.
I don't know. I guess
Yeah.
I really can answer that. We have other applications before us for vegetable, always organic gardens in no disturb zones. And so, yes, they're organic. Doesn't mean that the next owner is going to be organic. And it also doesn't mean that there's any habitat value to that garden. I'm an organic vegetable garden, but having it in a no disturb zone means that animals that would nest there, make a home there, can't do it there. So I'm sort of predisposed away from it, but the specifics could potentially sway me, but it would be an up-road battle.
Yeah. Okay. Agreed. Bob Delvecchio?
I could see it maybe in the backyard, maybe in the open area that's already disturbed. But I could not see it, in an area where you would have to remove brush or trees or anything like that.
Right. So removing the lawn is one thing as opposed to removing naturalized vegetation. Got it. Okay. Tom?
No, in a word.
Okay. Okay.
And that should come as no surprise.
All right. So there you have it, guys. You can try again if you can figure out a way to put it somewhere. The no disturb zone seems to be, I understand you don't want it in the front of the house by the driveway. What would you like to do? Do you want to continue this and have and think about it and see if you come up with another plan?
Madam Chair, Bill Riley, if we could continue don't know, say 6 weeks. I think that would give us time to meet with the property owner and hash out possibilities with him. And if we can't come up with anything, then prior to that time, we'd request a withdrawal.
Okay, so we will continue this to March 10th. That's 6 weeks from today, which would mean you would need to get the revised plans in by March 3rd. Does that
Right.
work?
That
Okay.
works.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, motion to continue 314 Morris Island Road to March the 10th.
Rawls moved to continue to March 10th.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote to continue to March 10th. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye. We'll see what they come back with on March 10th. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right, Paul, move on.
Next on the agenda is a notice of intent, 201 Old Harbor Road, Scott Brennan Properties LLC, applicant Brenna C. Melvin owner SE, still don't have an SE number, continuance of a hearing on a notice of intent for the proposed construction of a cottage, removal of existing cottage, and relocation of a shed. Assessors map 15F, parcel 62A. The landscape sketch plan has been received.
Is there anybody here on behalf of the applicant today?
Hi, this is Scott Brennan.
Yes, Mr. Brennan.
Co-owner and contractor.
Yep. Okay, so we have, I do see that the proposed site plan has been submitted. As you know, we had a brief conversation the other day on site. So let me just review, and I think Paul has had a conversation with you. But let's just review where we are. The original plan that had been filed was an old superseded plan. And the project as proposed is not to demolish the sheds and the cottages in the rear of the property, but to rebuild them in some cases in the same footprint, in one case in an expanded footprint, and to add a garage to the front of the house. So that new plan, revised December the 9th, reflects that. What we talked about, though, is that you also need to revise the project description in the narrative part of the submission to describe this, because it still describes demolition. It doesn't reflect the garage. We asked that you consolidate your landscape folks and your engineers to put everything on one plan so that the revised plan will have the project accurately reflected. We've asked that you add the trees that are proposed to be removed, as well as the mitigation areas identified on the plan and trees that are proposed to be planted. I'll also note that the plan also needs to have a stamp of the engineer who prepared it. And with that, then with the revised narrative and the accurate plan, we can then move forward. My question to you is, can this be done in a week's time? I would propose we take this to well, probably not. So what we talked about was, we talked about continuing this to February 24th, which gives you a little over 2 weeks to get the narrative done and get the single plan done. Does that about cover where we are?
I believe that covers about where we are. Yes, this plan that we're doing, the property is staked out for this December 9th plan, which is drastically scaled back from the original plan that we had submitted. It was just too big. So we would like to get kind of an okay to say that the December 9th plan is okay, provided that we provide all of that, the mitigation, the planting, the trees that will be removed, the location, as well as the new trees to be planted, and obviously the surveyor stamp on that December 9th plan.
Yep, that is exactly where we are. I can't tell you that that plan will be approved. We're just trying to get to the point where we have something accurate in front of us that we can assess. So if you guys can do that in a couple of weeks, we can continue this to the hearing on February 24th for a review and a decision on that revised plan.
Okay, I'm agreeable to that.
Okay.
You are as well.
Is there then a motion to continue to February 24th?
Yes, Bob Rawls moved to continue to February 24th.
Janet,
Yes, Tom?
I would just note that the area calculation table is FUBAR and needs to be properly presented.
Yeah, we
Yep.
did indicate that in an email yesterday. So
Sorry?
we did indicate that in the descriptive email. We asked for that information yesterday. So
Okay.
that's been communicated, but thank you. I agree.
Okay.
Totally
Yeah,
agree.
I didn't pick up on that. So, Mr. Brennan and make sure your representatives can develop an accurate coverage table. Thank you, Tom.
I will go over that with him as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So roll call vote to continue to the 24th of February. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye. We'll continue to 24th. Thank you, Mr. Brennan and et al.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to pause here and take a quick, we are almost 2 hours into this, and you know my rule, nobody needs to be sitting in front of their screen, straining forward to see it for more than that period of time. So we'll take 5 minutes to stand up, stretch your legs, move away from your screens. We'll be back to pick up the next item on the agenda at 10:47 plus 5. I can't do math, 10:55, call it. Thank you all. Okay, we're back. And Paul, you want to read the next item on the agenda, please?
Absolutely. Next on the agenda is a notice of intent, this is a continued hearing, 677 Orleans Road, Kristen Dietrich, Pussy Realty Trust, SE 10-3457, continuance of a hearing for a notice of intent for the proposed demolition of an existing dwelling, redevelopment of a property above the coastal bank, assesses map 12J, parcel 5, and revived plans have been received.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Bill Riley and Thad Eldridge on behalf of Kristen Dietrich. I'll just turn it over to Thad because it's his game today.
Okay.
All right, Thad Eldridge here, East Southeast. We've pulled the, let me share the screen.
Okay, Bob, you're off the hook for this one because Thad will do it.
Excellent.
That helps.
I try.
I know.
And there we go. I think the third page would be the best. We've pulled the patio out of the 50-foot no disturb zone as requested at the last meeting. We've located the salt marsh, beach grass, everything that's down below. We've shown those buffers. We've maintained the proposed wildflower meadow. We've updated the area calculations to show that zero mitigation is required. I believe it was a concern about banking at the last meeting, which we weren't intending to bank anything. It was just the fact that no mitigation is required, but we're still proposing the wildflower strip in between. I've also done the research on it recently when that wall, the vinyl sheet pile was installed. All the plants out there were freshly planted. They're all native, and we haven't seen any invasives in there to worry about. The one thing that I didn't include to you, it was a Joe Kitts question, is actually about 400 cubic yards of material that have to come out of the site when they're said and done. So we're not bringing fill in. And where we restore that slope closer to the water near the stairs, that can all be with on-site material, so it's compatible. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. You start the other direction today. Tom, do you have any questions for Thad or Bill?
Yeah, I just had a question about the stairs going down from the patio area. And I was concerned that while they're very tasteful, that their structure lends themselves, especially with a straight shot of stairs. I am concerned that rainfall or something might actually carve out some swales along the edge of the stairs. Am I misunderstanding something or missing some key point, Tad?
No, but we don't expect that much rainfall. As we discussed at the last meeting, everything's going to be matted, so we're going to have erosion control in place, and then everything will be planted. We'll have seed out there for part of it. We'll have wildflower meadow for the rest. The stairs themselves, most of the stormwater generated will pitch right back into the crushed gravel or crushed stone.
That's what I was going to say in response to Tom's concern, is that to the extent that water actually goes down the stairs, the center of each stair is crushed stone that will enable the water to infiltrate the substrate. So it's hard to imagine this be a real serious erosion problem there.
Okay, thank you. I had one other question, which was, I noticed on, let's see, excuse me a second, I gotta find it here. Yeah, on your WPA Form 3,
Go back to the site plan.
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, I want Thad to go back to the site plan.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
There you go. All right. Sorry, Tom.
It's all right.
Go ahead, Tom. What's your question?
Oh, okay. I just noticed on section sub B, where, you know, buffer zones and resource area impact, that there are a lot of resource areas that I would think on this property would be impacted, but they're not even discussed. And the boxes aren't checked, none of that. So I'm always concerned that we're missing things because they're being left out. So I was wondering why that section was completely blank.
So
Almost completely blank.
we are impacting about 50 linear feet of coastal bank, which has been specified on there. That's the revegetation that we're taking out the lawn. We're not buffer zone only. The other resource areas on the site, we're out of. The most landward resource area being the top of that coastal bank. Our proposed work stops at the top of the coastal bank, so we're not impacting the salt marsh, the beach grass down below. Those were all part of the pier and the seawall proposals.
No, my concern is not so much that you're, not impacting them, just assuming for the moment that issue. It's just that whenever there's resource areas around in the area that work is literally being done, but certainly their auras might reach out to some of these areas that they should always be noted and not left as though they don't exist.
It's important to note that the DEP and the Wetlands Protection Act is specific to protect the wetland itself, not the buffers. The buffer is something that's protected under the local bylaw.
Yeah, and so where is it in any of the paperwork? It's not. So, and we do have, by regulation, we're allowed to basically meld together WPA and bylaw. So it would seem to me that these should be filled in, even if you're not impacting them, just so there's not a question raised. Because as soon as I see something like that, I immediately, like any lawyer, we're trained to be skeptical, and so you begin to wonder, well, what's being omitted and why. And I understand the technical argument. I'm just saying, from a practical point of view, it seems like.
But the WPA form is not to deal with the local regulation. The local performance standards are for the local regulation, which you'll see in the project narrative. I've colored the regulation blue or green or some color like what the resource is, and I provided a response for each one of those performance standards.
One way we deal with this, Tom, is that's partly why we ask. I don't always focus on the boxes. It does occur to me from time to time that more should be ticked than normally are. But the site plan should reference all of the resource areas, which is why we asked that, to add the salt marsh and the beach to the site plan. And what we do is reference those in the orders of condition in that beginning table that says the following resource areas are associated with the property, meaning they're there, they're not necessarily being altered, so that they are referenced. And because this project is going to abut the beach and the salt marsh, we would probably add in the order of conditions that protective measures be taken to protect the beach and the salt marsh from any alteration, and if there is any alteration, that it be remediated immediately. And that's the way we sometimes handle these. Hold on, Tom.
Can I add one thing, Madam Chair? That DEP form cannot be modified. That's a DEP form. So the way we address the other interest that Tom's referring to is, as you know, through the analysis, the resource analysis they do for impacts, and as you just said, list it in the order of conditions that goes out. But that form itself is a DEP form, and even though it's true we do merge the two things together in the application, we separate out the bylaw issues and resource areas from that form. So I hope that answers your question, Tom.
It does. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Any other questions, Tom?
And if I may, just to get back to the question about impacts on the salt marsh, the beach, and the beach grass, there's a sheet pile, a vinyl sheet pile between the proposed work and those resource areas. There's no chance of affecting them.
Well, it helps. It does. It never say never, but yeah. Largely prevents any impact. Okay, other questions from other commissioners? Bob Delvecchio, do you have questions for Bill or Thad?
Yeah, I have a question about the lawn area. Is it
Okay.
going to be irrigated and so forth?
He would like to maintain the irrigation. We said that at the last, where we know that we're probably going to see in the order of conditions a prohibition on irrigation, but we can still ask for it. The lawn is currently irrigated right out to the top of the bank. We'd be pulling everything back into the lawn area. We're willing to put in the conservation mixed grasses on the entire property in exchange for that irrigation.
Yeah, well, once you start irrigating, then you go down the road of fertilizing and applying pesticides and the whole thing. I would like to see no irrigation within the 50 and just, Cape Cod lawn.
We can expect nothing less, so we can still ask.
Okay. That's what I have in my notes from last time.
Yes.
That's what we're going to ask. Okay, thank you. Bob Rawls?
Yeah, that's just what I was going to talk about. Just we need to have fescue in the resource area, no irrigation. That's just what we do for every application. That's all. And the rest of it, it's an unusual project. Then it's retreating so much that there's no mitigation required, but that's the way it works out.
Yep.
Well, that's what you should hope for every project.
Indeed.
Yeah. No, that is the hope. Okay, then is there a motion to continue this to the work session on February 3rd for an order of conditions?
Yeah, Bob Rawls moved to go to the February 3rd work session for orders of conditions.
Second.
Roll call vote to continue. What the heck is this one? 676. Oh, wait, I have a letter I have to read into the record. And a neighbor. 76. Letter of support. Letter received from Brian and Linda Miner at 671 Orleans Road. We are writing to express our support for the proposed redevelopment of 676 Orleans Road. In 2013, we became full-time Orleans Road residents and quickly learned that many abutting or nearby properties enjoyed long or multi-generational family ownership. Our new neighbors welcomed and supported our efforts to redevelop 671 Orleans Road, which in 2017 was recognized with a Preservation Award by the Historical Commission. In appreciation of the neighborly give and take shown to us, we'd like to extend a welcome and show of support to Chris Dietrich and his family, Brian and Linda Miner. So they're in support. Okay, sorry about that. Roll call vote to continue 676 Orleans Road to February 3rd work session. Commissioner Rawls?
Aye.
Delvecchio?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
I vote aye. We'll take it to the work session. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bob, if you can get a hold of the revised site plan for Zero Gillis.
Good morning, Madam Chair. David Little, Ryder and Wilcox.
Look, good morning, David. Hang on a second. Let me get Paul to read it first.
Oh, excuse me.
It's okay.
Next on the agenda is Zero Gillis Road. This is a notice of intent, a continuance of a hearing, Jack and Marilyn Gillis, SE 10 3464. Project is to construct a single-family dwelling sewage disposal system, use of native plant species for mitigation purposes. Assessors map 4B, parcel CT3, revised planting plan has been received.
Good morning, Commissioners, Madam Chair, David Little. I believe I'm here with Teresa Sprague of Blue Flax Design. The plan before you had one minor change. We have shown a drywall on the engineering plan. I had a discussion with Mr. Clark at the last hearing relative to the use of downspouts and dry wells or crushed stone at the roof drip line. And the applicant likes the idea of crushed stone at the roof drip line, but around the deck, they may include gutters and downspouts. So we have included a proposed dry well location landward of the limit of work in the lawn area adjacent to the deck. So that is the only change to the site plan. And I think the majority of the concerns and questions were relative to the path and the vegetation and trees on the Blue Flax plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Good morning, everybody. This is Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. Thank you for pulling up our plan. So we had some changes that were made just very briefly. We had a request to add more oak trees to mitigate for the number of trees that are being removed. As you recall from the last hearing, there are 22 trees proposed for removal for the construction of the dwelling. We are proposing to plant 17 trees back. We added 5 additional oak trees to our planting plan, along with the red maple, pitch pine, and Amelanchier canadensis, serviceberry, Canada serviceberry. In addition to that, we planted the shrubs a little more heavily around the pathway proposed from the house to the existing footpath that runs along the edge of the marsh. And we did move the vegetable garden at least partially out of the 50-foot buffer zone in order to get some of that square footage out of the no disturb zone. The property owners would like to take advantage of that small level area they have at the base of the deck, so just to the east of the deck. The garden, of course, will be organic. We did discuss that with them at length, and that's how they currently garden. It basically consists of 2 fairly small raised vegetable beds. One that's been changed to 1 10 by 20 raised vegetable planter. So not a significant impact in the no disturb zone. Of course, no vegetation will be removed in order to construct that garden. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the changes we've made to the landscape management proposal.
Okay, thank you, David and Teresa. Teresa, how high do the raised bed raise?
That's a good question. We had a sketch of that here. I believe it's about 3 feet high. But let me just pull that up and get an answer for you on how that was designed. I don't believe they were meant to be anything just something above the ground.
Mm-hmm. So if it's raised to that height, there's no need for any fencing?
Correct. They would just be fencing on top of the actual bed itself, just to prevent anything from getting in there and grazing. Just really a simple, like chicken wire kind of fencing that would go on top of the vegetable bed.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Bob Delvecchio, let me go to you first. Questions.
I think it looks good. I mean, I like the additional trees being planted. I know the vegetable garden was moved. And I know Tom had a problem with the maybe erosion by the stairs and so forth. So that's been addressed. But otherwise, I think it looks good. Thank you. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, educate me on what's been done to solve the erosion possibilities from the path.
Well, there really are no major erosion concerns here. These are in-ground timbers with grass in between, so that absorbs a lot of the stormwater runoff. To the south of the area where the path curved, where there could potentially be a little bit of where the timbers may act as a little bit of a water bar. We've just planted that really densely just to the south. It says proposed mown path with timber risers. You can see in this image. If you go to our image, that area where there's that small curve, we just planted that much more densely that hadn't been planted previously. In addition, the area in green, we added a note to our legend. That is all native grasses that are currently existing in those areas, and the disturbance in here will be minimal. So we'll literally be setting in-ground timbers into the slope. Those native grasses will remain, will not be disturbed. In areas where there's some minor disturbance because of our planting of shrub to get a shrub layer established, we'll be plugging in Pennsylvania sedge around the shrubs in order to make sure that that ground cover is thick as it currently is.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Tom?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Bob, Walls? Bob? You're muted if you're speaking.
Yeah,
You're muted. You're still muted. You were unmuted for a moment, and now you're back to being muted.
all right.
There you go.
Yeah, all right. I think I see discrepancies in the planting plan with the notes versus the list of plants. So let's go to my notes here. On the planting schedule, I see 16 trees, 198 shrubs, whereas the plan says planting 17 trees and 210 shrubs. So I think there's a discrepancy between the text and the table.
So there are 6 oak trees. There's 1 red maple, 1 pitch pine, and 8 amelanchier. 5, 6, 7. It looks like there may have been an amelanchier removed. So, oh no, I'm sorry. So there's 8 amelanchier. I'm counting that on the plan, and that's what's in our table. You'll have to forgive me. So this planting schedule is basically generated by the AutoCAD program we use. So there should not be a discrepancy at all, but I will certainly be happy to double check that. What's in the planting schedule would be what's actually going to be planted.
Okay, so it is 1 short in the schedule.
We have 6 oaks, 6 white oaks, 1 pitch pine, 8 Canada serviceberry, and 1 red maple. And I believe that's what's showing on the plan.
Right, but the note just says 17 and that's 16. So.
Oh, my apologies. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the notes, I'm looking at the plant schedule. There may be. So if that's the case, I do apologize and I will correct that.
Okay.
And similarly with the shrubs, I believe, whenever I counted up the shrubs, the notes disagree with the table. The plant
okay,
schedule.
I will make sure that the notes match the planting schedule. My apologies.
Okay.
The only other issue I had is the organic garden. We're getting all sorts of requests for these organic gardens in the no disturb zone, and I don't know. I think we need to be consistent on it. And there was another application here today that wanted the same. And as I pointed out then, I'll point out now, organic is good. However, habitat is lost. It will attract pollinators, but nothing is going to burrow there, nest there, etc. So I'm glad that you pulled it halfway out, and that's good. But it would be better, and for purposes of consistency, to be out of the NDZ altogether. So my question is it possible? Is it possible for you to remove it from the NDZ?
We did discuss that, and let me just quickly, I'm just going to do a very rough measurement. We're looking at, and I think one of the things, and this is actually, quite frankly, I think a good thing, is that, with what we're experiencing now, and we're hearing more and more of this from our clients, that are now spending more time at home because of the pandemic, there is a resurgence and an interest in gardening and vegetable gardening. And I think any kind of gardening and connecting people with the landscape and the land is a really positive thing. We're looking at approximately 100 square feet at the very edge of the 50-foot no disturb zone. Again, there's nothing being removed. Obviously, trees are being removed for the construction of the house, but otherwise, no other vegetation's being disturbed. There's really is limited area, and there is obviously going to be a lot of canopy on the southern portion of the lot. So this is sort of the one open area that allows them to have some access to a vegetable garden as well as some access to level native grass area that will be just below their deck. So if we were to pull that vegetable garden entirely out of that area, they'll lose any access they have to level area just for the purposes of other recreation outside of the 50-foot no disturb zone. So we thought that this was a good compromise. We're looking at approximately 100 square feet within the NDZ vegetable garden, and then planted all around it.
Yeah, well, I agree. Gardening's a great thing, and it's obviously increasing during the pandemic. I do it, but I worry, as I say, that everyone who comes to us wants to put it in the NDZ. I think it's a dubious precedent that we would be setting, that we are setting, and anyway, those are my thoughts on that.
No, I understand. In this particular case, I'm very grateful that it's not a swimming pool.
I agree with you on that. It's not a swimming pool. Thank you.
And Mr. Rawls, the applicants are very much committed to organic gardening. They understand what's involved, and they are committed to that.
Yeah, I believe you. But I've been on the commission now for over a couple of years, and what has occurred to me is that more often than you would think, houses change hands and the subsequent owners don't have the same intentions as the previous owner. So I can't really look at it. I don't look at it in terms of the current applicant, quite honestly. But nevertheless, this is a small lot. The NDZ takes up pretty much the whole backyard. So I could be persuaded to go along with it, but I still think it's a precedent that we need to be very careful about. That's all.
I agree.
Janet, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Teresa, how does sunlight enter into the equation with the garden itself being moved?
Well, I mean, this is really the best location for it. It's south facing, and so it's going to get the most sunlight. We have planted additional trees along the eastern property line. So that'll affect it just a little bit, but not tremendously. This would be the best location for it. I mean, if we were to move it where we had it originally, further into the 50-foot buffer, it was also a great location. So I think that's what this is based on, is amount of sunlight. It's a relatively small vegetable garden.
And if you move it closer to the house, you'll lose more sunlight, correct?
Yeah, a little bit, and then also too, they'll just lose the only area that they have for recreation is that area just below the deck or to the east of the deck on that side of the house. So we just want to leave just enough room for realistic access and circulation, and for the way a family might use the property. Okay. Again, always trying to be realistic. We could plant things right up to the edge of the house, but we just know from experience that it's just really not sustainable.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Teresa, is there any possibility that the garden could be reconfigured so that it's a bit longer and narrower to move it out of the no disturb zone and still leave a bit of yard, of lawn area?
It could. I mean, we could definitely. We did have. We had quite a lengthy conversation with the property owners after the last hearing, and this is what they asked us to present. I could certainly bring that back to them.
I would like that. That would,
Okay.
I share Bob's concern. I mean, because he's absolutely right that it doesn't have, from our perspective, anything at all to do with the current occupants and their intentions, which we applaud. But we have to worry about precedent, and there is a slippery slope that we start going down. And you've heard, we've been talking about this all morning.
Sure. Well, I wonder if, and David, it's hard to confer when we're on a virtual meeting, so sitting in separate offices. But if that's what the commission feels, I wonder if it would be more appropriate then for us to remove the request for the vegetable garden. And if the Gillises would like to reconfigure it, we could come back and request an amendment in the future.
That would be fine. In fact,
David, do you agree with that? I know ideally we would like to move this to the next hearing if possible.
I think for the Gillis's sake, I would probably prefer to move it just outside of the 50-foot buffer and provide the commission with the revised plan so we could continue it to a work session. I don't.
We will go to the work session, David. I don't think that we're talking about that. The question is, I don't think that the Gillises need to decide on the exact location of the garden at this moment.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Right. We just take it off for now, build the house, and then come back. It could probably be done as an RDA if it's mostly outside and it's having minimal impact on the buffer zone. You wouldn't have to go through a full NOI process.
I think that's a great idea.
Great, thanks. That's what I meant, David. Thank you.
Okay, so Teresa, can that be done?
Yes.
To sweet, yeah?
Yep, yeah, absolutely. We can get that done for today.
So it'll come out of the plan, out of notes, out of the narrative.
Yes, and I will also submit a plan for you with the corrected plan notes with the tree and shrub counts.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. With that, do we have a motion then to take this proposal as it's about to be revised in the next 2 days or so to the work session on February 3rd?
Bob Rawls moved to continue to work session on February 3rd with amendments or revisions that we discussed.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote to continue 0 Gillis Road to the work session on February 3rd. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We will take it to the work session for an order of conditions. Thank you, and thank your clients. We appreciate their efforts, but we have other issues to keep in mind at the same time. It gets hard to balance.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Paul, moving on.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. We are down now to 255 Sea Pine Road, Kristen Bratberg, SE 10 3453. This is a continuance of a hearing for a notice of intent for a proposed patio and timber step replacement, landscaping, invasive plant management, and site restoration. Assesses map 12K parcel HC18. Revised plans have been received.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. David Little from Ryder Wilcox. I believe Dave Hawk from Hawk Design is on, as well as is Katrine Higgins from Wilkinson Ecological Design. I addressed 2 things for the commission. One in particular was to provide you with a dug-in step protocol. And I included a couple of photographs of the existing steps that the only problem with them is they're rotting. And so we are proposing to replace them in kind. The existing post and rope handrail would act as the limit of work. Construction would begin at the bottom of the steps. The 8x8 steps would be cut exactly as to the width that the present steps are, and the operation would commence at the bottom and then work their way up the hill, and then removing the debris from the site when complete. There is little or really no erosion created by these steps because they're so well vegetated. So I would anticipate that once they go back in, there might be some minor tamping of vegetation and grasses around them, but I don't anticipate any stormwater issues from the in-kind replacement of the steps. Additionally, I took a look at the drain near the top of the coastal bank and the lawn that has been abandoned for quite some time. It is filled with dirt. Those metal grates aren't serving any purpose. They can be removed. And I think that more or less addresses the concerns from Ryder and Wilcox's perspective. So I'll pass it along to one of my fellow presenters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Katrine Higgins from Wilkinson Ecological Design. We made some minor refinements to both our land management plan and our restoration plan. First, in our land management plan, we provided additional detail really on the quality of the vegetated buffer strip that we're talking about and we're proposing. Overall, that buffer strip, it will improve infiltration on the site and allow stormwater to seep into the ground before it has a chance to become runoff. So we just provided some additional details on that. And then on our restoration plan, which you can see in front of you now, there was a question about plant density. So we provided an additional 20 shrubs on the plan, some more bayberry, black chokeberry, and we've added baccharis to the plan, which is a great shrub to provide really some nice storm, in terms of storm action, to provide some buffer along the toe of the bank. And you will see on our planting plan that the majority of the shrubs and plants that we're proposing are in that eastern area of the bank, because the western area, as we describe in our land management plan, will have minimal disturbance there. There's nice native grasses and trees in that area. So really, we're focusing the shrubs in the area that needs it the most, which is that eastern area, as you can see on the plan. So overall, we're proposing 10,500 square feet of restoration, and this will serve as mitigation for the 560 square feet of proposed additional hardscape on the property. And we are including lawn removal within that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Katrine. Do we have, I'm sorry that I'm blanking on your name, the gentleman from Hawk. Do you need to have something?
Yes, Madam Chair, for the record, yes, I am Hawk. I'm Dave Hawk from Hawk Design. Okay. So we hit on that. We were asked by the commission to take a look at a percentage of native and non-native ornamental shrubs, non-invasive shrubs that would be planted within the 50 to 100 foot buffer. And we've provided that. We were looking at going 60% ornamental and 40% native. Obviously, there's some foundation beds that would become more ornamental in nature as far as that density. But also, as we move out to the beds that flank the water side of the patio, we would be putting a greater density of natives in there, so that that would be a positive. We've also added a list that's a secondary. A lot of these are taken off the secondary list of non-native shrubs from the cooperative extension. Some of them are American natives, and others are just ornamental shrubs, but they're all non-invasive. So we provided that list of plants that potentially could be used in these planting areas. There was some question and some further clarity on the drainage of the patios. Obviously, we've only got approximately 30 inches of fall there. We feel that the lawn is it's very flat, particularly as we get toward the coastal bank, and the slopes are very negligible. We'll be planting the planting areas tight, meaning the beds that are in between the terraces and the coastal bank. We'll plant those tight, and there'll be a very minimal slope, a 6% slope that those beds will run down to create to get to that flat lawn area. So with that, we feel that it's will do no harm as far as runoff going to the coastal bank, and we just added that clarity for you. With that said, that's what we have. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to take those on.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hawk. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me start with Tom. Do you have any questions for any of the?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, Bob Del Vecchio.
Yeah, I had a question about the lawn in the 50. I know we didn't talk about it too much, and we didn't make a decision on it, but we did mention about not having it irrigated. And I was wondering what the proposal was.
I'll take that as it's currently irrigated and it's currently lawn. We would graciously request that it remain as such.
Okay. And the drain grate, David, is that will be removed, you said, and filled in?
Yes, I've actually pulled it off. there are 2 metal grates and a little bit of concrete that can be removed by hand. Yes, it almost requires no fill.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Bob Rawls.
Yeah, I'm doing double duty here.
You are.
So I appreciate the change in the foundation plantings to go from 100% non-native to, as I recall, it's 60% non-native and 40% native. But I took interest in the fact that the 60% non-native were from the Cape Cod cooperative list of plants with food value. They're not invasive. So I applaud the effort, and I think it's a reasonable compromise. On Bob Delvecchio's question about the lawn, I think we do need to sort of take that head on. As we all know, irrigation is not supposed to occur in the NDZ. Of course, if in turf lawn for that matter as well. So I think we need to have a little discussion on it. If there's anything that you can do to move our direction on that would be appreciated. And that's what I have.
Thank you. I have to underscore that. We just went through a few minutes ago requiring somebody to remove the irrigation from the no disturb zone. Because it's just as a matter of well, it's what our regulations say. I don't know how it was installed or when it was installed or whether a permit was issued for it to be installed. Haven't looked at the history of this site, but can say that going forward, we want to insist on full compliance when we can get it. With all of our standards and regulations, and that includes permanent in-ground irrigation, which, as Bob Del Vecchio pointed out, almost invariably leads to the use of chemicals and fertilizers for it to achieve the effect that the homeowner is looking for, but not within the no disturb zone. There are plenty of—
Madam Chair, I think the commission's very clear on that. We understand that the irrigation has to go out in the NDZ.
Okay, great. I was just prepping you for giving you my speech. So the order will require it to be removed. And there's plenty of fescue species that will thrive and do well even without it. And to the extent during a drought period, some above ground is needed. There's plenty of options for providing that. Okay. With that, I think we are ready to schedule this to go to the work session. So is there a motion to continue this to the work session on February 3rd?
Bob Rawls moved to continue to work session on February 3rd.
Second.
Roll call vote to continue 255 Sea Pine Road to February 3rd. Commissioner Walls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That's unanimous to go to the work session for the order of conditions. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, David, Katrine, and David. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right, Paul, last one coming up.
Last one. Thank you, Madam Chair. Next on the agenda is a notice of intent continuance hearing for 155 and 157 Bridge Street. Eastwood Companies is the applicant. Mitchell River Nominee Trust. William R. Enlow, trustee owner, SE 10 3452. For the proposed demolition of an existing dwellings, and one swimming pool, construction of a new dwelling and two new swimming pools at 155 and 157 Bridge Street, assesses map 15B, parcel 1B, and we have received revised plans.
Good morning, David Clark, Clark Engineering. I believe Teresa's also here still.
Yes.
The commission asked for changes to the site plan, mainly calling out the existing chain link fence to be removed. I've also added that language to the narrative and also revised the narrative to change the verbiage of reconstruction the house to constructing new dwellings. And I also added language about the storm of record for this area. And, oh, the commission also wanted to know the disposition of the trees that were flagged in blue.
Yeah.
Those trees were marked by Clark Engineering as the trees that are required to come out as part of the house construction, and strictly limited to that. Obviously, there are more trees coming out as described in Teresa's land management plan, but the ones flagged in blue were associated with house construction.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay.
Shall I start?
Yes.
Okay,
Hello.
so thanks, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flex Design again. Yes, just confirming, I did go out to the site and checked on the blue flagging and realized that it was indeed all of the trees that are flagged in blue are just within the structural footprint. So we did not flag any trees outside of that area as part of Blue Flex's invasive species management plan. What we have done for this particular plan mainly was we added a note regarding the removal of the chain link fence, similar to David's. And then Callie had requested that we change the graphics somewhat because as they are quite busy, the plans, there's a lot going on. Normally a plan like this would be shown on several different plan set pages, but you know, we need to get them all on one page for permitting purposes. So what we've done is we changed our planting graphics. So there's call outs so you can see the plants along just to make it a little less busy. And then on the lower left-hand corner, we did an inset that basically just shows the invasive tree removal. And so those are all marked with the red X's that without the planting overlay on top of it. So those correspond with the trees that are marked with red X's in the larger plan, planting plan. So that's just simply the site plan with the trees located, and the trees that are marked with the red X's there are the invasive trees that are to be removed. Those trees consist of white poplar and tree of heaven.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking in my notes. I can't find it. How many trees, David, were flagged with the blue that are slated for removal for construction purposes?
I don't have that number handy.
I can probably count them up quickly for you.
Are they identified differently on the plan, Teresa, than the invasive?
No, they're not. They are all invasive. I believe there's a couple of ornamental trees, but they're mainly invasive, and they're shown similarly on the plan. You can see if you're looking at the larger plan, they're basically in the footprint of the house and shown with red X's.
Okay, so once again, just so I'm clear, all of the trees that are slated for removal are either invasive or non-native ornamental.
Correct.
Okay. Then I don't care, then the count is less important. Okay, I don't need to know that unless somebody else does. Let me open it up to questions. Bob Rawls?
Okay, yeah, here I am. No, the revisions do make it much more clear. Is there not going to be a fence between these two properties? Are they designed to be two houses that are cohabited, as it were?
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is going to be a condominium, so there'll be separate owners for the two structures.
Mhm. And the plan doesn't show for a fence between them. Okay, and you don't intend to put one.
Well, if a future owner wants to install a fence and it's in your jurisdiction, I'm sure they'll come to you.
Yeah.
Right. Other than that, I'm not sure. There's the issue that we discussed early on about the pools being in the floodplain, and I don't know exactly what to do about that, but the issue remains. As you, Mr. Riley, pointed out, we've approved it before. Doesn't mean we should have, but we did. I'm not sure that anything can be done about it in this particular case. So overall, it's a good. I applaud the landscape, the mitigation plan, and it's certainly going to be an improvement to the heavily invaded area that's there now. That's all I have.
Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at the site plan, only one of the pools is in the floodplain. The 155, 157 is
yeah,
not.
you're right.
Okay, yeah. And a good part of the house, most of the house and the pool are still in the floodplain. Okay, that's what I thought the situation was. Bob Del Vecchio, questions?
I have a question about that holly, Teresa, that was marked with blue flagging. That's slated to be removed. Can that be transplanted?
I am not sure. Do you recall, Bob, where that holly was located?
Let's see, the pictured here, the house on the right is 157.
Mm-hmm.
I was behind 157. The backyard on the north side.
I apologize. I will have to go out and look again. I just can't remember right now. I went out quickly. I looked at the blue flags, very quickly realized that they were flagged because of the house location, and I don't recall where the holly was located. Let me go back through my photos while we're talking about additional questions, and I may be able to find that.
Excuse me. This is Andrew Garrelay. On my plan, it shows up, and I was careful to grade so that it was not affected by that. I know the tree you're talking about. If you look at the landscape plan, I don't know if you have that in front of you or if I need to share it. It will show that without a red line in it.
Can you do that, Andrew? Do you have?
I don't know if I can share. I'll try to share, but I don't know if somebody else is sharing first.
Let me release it. All right.
Okay, now you can try.
All right, let's see what we have.
It's right on the 50-foot line.
Am I sharing there? Can you see?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's right. I don't know if you can see my hand on there.
It's LY. It says, so that must be it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a Nellie Stevens holly. It's a 10-inch Nellie Stevens holly right on the coastal bank 50-foot line. I don't think that needs to be removed.
Yeah, David Clark here. I will take the blue flag off of that. There was 2 other native trees within the work limit that had blue flags, and I took the flags off of those. There's no reason to remove those. So I can easily take the flag off of that this week. So there's no confusion when construction starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe put some, I don't know, construction fencing around the existing plants that are going to remain.
I can move the work limit inside of that. so it's clear to the contractor.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Great. Tom?
Yeah, David, you noted in the narrative that there's land containing shellfish, but I don't think it's ever been mapped on your plan. Is there any reason why that wasn't done?
It's presumed that all the land seaward of the mean high water mark is land containing shellfish. So it's one and the same delineation as the mean high water mark.
Okay, and then is there any reason to be concerned that are you taking any steps to preserve those areas just so they aren't smothered by erosion or runoff?
It's the same concerns with the salt marsh. So a well-maintained silt barrier will do the trick as far as protecting those two resource areas.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had, Janet.
Okay, thank you. Let me just double check my notes about the chain link fence, record, planting layer, confirmation. And then, of course, I have a note that I can't read because, I wrote it. So too bad. I think that is it. I think we are ready then to, what happened? Did you have approval from ZBA?
Yes, Madam Chair, we did.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no. Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Confused. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
Yes, they did.
That's right. They did. They asked for, we did give them a letter. So, okay, that's all set. Paul, is there anything else that we have missed that,
No, I think you've covered it all. We should talk about when you want to issue this order. There are several certificates of compliance that have to be issued.
Oh, right. That's right.
It could be done at the same time, but I had to use a large notebook for the orders that have to be drafted. So, I mean, I don't know how much of a hurry you are with this one. Give us some breathing room, that would be good. But otherwise, if you want to do it February 3rd, I guess it's up to you guys.
Well, yeah, what is your schedule? We do have to clean up those old orders of condition.
I'm sure the property has transferred, and I'm certain that they want to get going on the demolition as soon as they can. So.
Yeah. Okay. So how what is the plan for review cleaning up the old orders and COCs?
If Your Honor, please, excuse me, Madam Chair. There are two orders that are outstanding. One is a 2005 order. There was vegetation and coastal engineering, and the person of Sean Riley has submitted a COC request. I don't know if Paul wants to make a comment on that.
Yes, I would. I did ask for after it was just invasive removal, nothing planted around the periphery of the property. So I did ask for post photographs if they could supply them. Haven't received them yet, but that would complete the certificate of compliance checklist. That's it.
So I have Madam Chair, I have a question for Paul then. I mean, assume the work was done in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we have pictures from 2005, I can't imagine a picture from today is going to show anything but invasives. So.
Well, that may be true, but there's nothing there. I mean, they just relied on the pictures they took before. They didn't take any post pictures, and if you think it's all invasives again.
Well, I'm just assuming invasives being invasives.
Let me ask you this. Are these are these going, this is a raise and a rebuild, so are you clearing that area out?
We have, if you look on the plan we just had up,
Yep.
there's a complete mitigation planting plan for that whole area.
That settles that then. If it's, you know, if it's going to be taken out and then replanted, then no, I don't need to have any other photographs. The other outstanding, go ahead, Bill, you can finish up on the certificates that are outstanding. I can comment.
So the other outstanding order was issued in 1980. So what's 40 years between friends? But and it was for the construction of the house that's about to be demolished. And so I've submitted something to Paul. He asked me to go take pictures of the house, which I did, and we submitted stuff to Paul. Whether Paul needs anything additional, but as I say, the whole purpose of this is to demolish the house and remove it and move everything back. So that's we'd love to get moving on this, with the February 3rd meeting, if that's possible. We certainly don't want to put it off another month.
The old orders, just so everyone understands, we had to go digging for the orders for the two individual structures. We did find two different orders that were issued. So Bill has submitted requests for certificate of compliance on both of those. Oddly enough, one of the houses had an interim order issued under the same SE number. I think it was 146. Shows you how far back it went. And then there was a final order to build the house, but he's just going to submit one certificate because only one SE number was issued. And so we've got that one. And then there's one, I think, with 200 and something, I forget what the exact number is, that is also on the lot that has to be, for the other structure that has to be cleared up. So it's not complicated. The certificates aren't complicated because of what you're proposing and what you're doing. It's not as if we're going out to see that a lot of structures are there that weren't permitted, therefore we couldn't approve them, and they're going to remain. With the proposed construction, I mean, we can clear these certificates up with a recommendation on that date.
Okay. Then we'll do that. And we'll schedule this for, add it to the work session for February 3rd. And then we're going to have a word at the end of today's session about how we're going to do this. So is there a motion to continue this to the work session February 3rd?
Yes, Bob Rawls moved to continue the February 3rd work session.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote to continue 155-157 Bridge Street to February 3rd. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Del Vecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye, so we will do that one way or another. Gentlemen, Mr. Riley, Clark, and Ms. Sprague, don't leave. We have reached the end of our formal agenda, but there's a matter we would like to discuss and take advantage of the fact that you all are here. And that relates to 68 Shell Drive. You may remember at the last time when we heard it, I expressed the view that the commission feels out of its depth in assessing the environmental impact of depositing that amount of fill, that volume of fill in that area. We don't feel that we are qualified to assess the report that Woods Hole Group did, and I expressed the need for us to retain a third-party expert to advise us and provide an external evaluation. So we would like to initiate that process. Paul advises me that it's not clear, but the best approach would be for us to vote to initiate the process. But we wanted to have you all here while we discuss it.
Well, I understand that. I appreciate, being included in the discussion. I guess the Woods Hole Group is basically the gold standard for this kind of work. So
Yep.
the
There's only one person that we know of that we would be qualified to do this,
who
given
would
that John Ramsey.
I know Mr. Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
The is the format that you're going to provide him with Woods Hole Group's report, and perhaps require him to watch the hearing when they did the presentation,
Mm-hmm.
and then provide comments on that, or is he going to go out and do his study?
I'm not defining the scope ahead of time is a little hard. That's my plan. That's what we're hoping to do, is to provide him the report, let him watch. I think if he feels it is important that there's information that is not in the Woods Hole Group plan that needs to be taken into consideration, then we should have a further conversation at that point. I don't think you'll be authorized on his own to go out and conduct a complete new investigation.
Okay, and obviously we would make Alex Shaw and Leslie Fields available to Mr. Ramsey as well.
Yep.
So we'll be happy to coordinate that with you. I understand, it represents a substantial delay, but I understand your obligation to your own responsibility. So.
Okay. So Paul will then coordinate. Will help you with the coordination. Okay.
Yeah, and Bill, just so we notify you by certified mail. Choose the consultant. The money has to be deposited with the town treasurer. That's money that the applicant pays. The scope of services is very broad, so he could actually I'm not suggesting he does this, but he could do his own analysis, look at your analysis, critique it. But obviously watching the tape and reviewing the reports is important. But what the commission's looking for is an independent analysis, and he reports directly to the commission. Of course, he'd share everything with you. That's always been our practice. And you have the right to appeal who we choose to the selectmen, but that's the only right of appeal that I see in the regulation. And so it will, once we get it out to him, it shouldn't take too long to move forward, but we need to know what he's gonna charge for that. So we have to lay the scope out with him.
Well, I think it's important that in the first instance, that his scope of work is what I just discussed with the chair. That is, he watches the video, he reviews the written report, and consults with Leslie Fields and Alex Shaw of Woods Hole Group. I mean, as you might imagine, the report cost a lot of money to generate, and the idea that our client would have to pay that number twice without first just a review of what.
I totally agree with you. I think everyone does. Or I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I'm sure Chair agrees. Yeah, everyone else does. That's certainly the appropriate way to go.
Yeah.
All right, great. Then we understand, and it represents a significant delay, but we're okay with that.
Okay. Then is there a motion then for the commission to retain John Ramsey as an independent expert to evaluate the report done by Woods Hole Group and the impact of the fill?
Yes, Bob Rawls, I would just say so moved.
Yeah, thank you.
Clark, second.
All right, roll call vote. Commissioner Rawls?
Aye.
Del Vecchio?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So thank you. We hope this isn't going to be a significant delay, but again, you know, without hammering the point too much, this is a significant
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
proposal for us
we
to
agree.
deal with. Okay.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. Before we adjourn, actually, let's adjourn first, and then I have a word to say about these orders. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes, Bob Rawls moved to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote to adjourn, Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye. We are adjourned.